Right, now I'm very excited because I've got 4 people here who are really at the forefront of technology and innovation in this space. And that is quite a room to be saying that in, because this is a room of technology and innovation, and a very, very exciting room. But here we have some very progressive people. So we're going to talk about why this is an important subject and what the solutions are in this space. So I'm going to ask each of the panel to kind of briefly explain what it is that they're doing. But Tina, I'm going to start with you. Sodra obviously is a producer of dissolving pulp, and ONCEMORE is a textile-to-textile recycler. So you're kind of the first step in the value chain. So please explain for us how ONCEMORE has grown out of Sodra and the work that both companies do.
Sure. I just want to say thank you for having me. It's so nice to be here. And it's hard to get to talk about this and be brief about it because always so much I want to say. But the company behind ONCEMORE, because ONCEMORE is a part of Södra, and the company behind is Södra. And Södra is a family forest industry. So we are actually owned by over 50,000 families in Sweden, owning their own forest. And we help them manage the forest, but also produce a lot of different products from the forest and from the trees. So we produce everything from energy to building systems to timber to paper pulp and dissolving pulp. And dissolving pulp is the raw material before it comes viscose and lyocell or modal fibers. But with ONCEMORE, we are doing something unique. We are adding a new type of feedstock, and we are able to take polycotton blends. We can separate the cotton, and we take the cotton cellulose and blend it with the wood cellulose and create a pulp that today, I always carry this around, I'm sorry, contains 20% recycled cotton and 80% wood from our families. So we produce the raw material before it becomes the fiber, and then the yarn, and then the textile, and then the finished products. But with ONCEMORE, we also want to follow throughout the value chain. We want to create this system, system that also comes back to us. So we collaborate with partners within the value chain and with partners like brands like Selected and Bestseller to follow our pulp throughout the value chain, but also help with the data that is needed to get the full traceability. So that's me.
Just to understand, Tina, you're basically doing something really quite progressive in the space.
Yeah.
And what you need to be able to do is to prove that you're doing it and explain how you're doing it.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. So a lot of innovators are small and startups. We are actually in big production already. So we are out there. We are producing our pulp. We have a really high quality, but we need a demand to be able to still keep on going. So sometimes we just want to show ourselves we are here, we are already up and running, and we can help you with our product.
Okay, great. So I'm going to go to Jack next.
Hi.
Jack, you're working with TextileGenesis.
Yes.
Are you solving Tina's problem?
Yeah, in a nutshell, yes. Yeah. Firstly, thanks for having me here today. Today's the first day of Glastonbury Festival. It feels a bit like we're in a silent disco tent in the southeast corner of Glastonbury. Hopefully it's as exciting as that, but we'll see.
Should we dance at the end?
Yeah, maybe do a bit of dancing. So TextileGenesis, we are a fiber forwards traceability platform. We work with over 300 brands and retailers today. We've traced 3 billion garments from fiber origin to finished garment, including recycled pulp materials. And why is this important? Well, we've helped our brands identify, in some cases, 20% of their materials are not where they thought they were from. So 1 in 5 of their garments was actually not the branded or certified material that they thought they were sourcing. Which is huge. The scale of fiber fraud today is massive. We found fake transaction certificates in our supply chains that we work with brands on, where PDFs have just been created and material had been duplicated. So a big risk for brands and retailers if they don't have visibility of their total value chain. The way that we help build that trust is we have a technology called FiberCoin technology, where we create a digital twin for every kilogram of fiber that's created at a trusted certified source. And then we trace that material through each stage of the value chain. And really that's important not just for brands and retailers, but also for preferred fiber producers at the start of the value chain, such as ONCEMORE, to help ensure that there's not frauds taking place for the certified materials. The last thing any of us want is for the consumer to think they're buying a more sustainable fiber, but actually it's just conventional fiber being disguised as a more certified product. So that's what we help protect against. And yeah, really excited to be working with some of the guys on the panel today, including Bestseller as a brand and HAELIXA as well as a physical tracer. So yeah.
Can I ask
Yes.
you, fiber fraud, how big a problem is it?
Pretty big, yeah, pretty big. And we try not to scare people too much, but a lot of people will be aware in 2020, there was 20,000 tons of fake organic cotton claimed out of India under the GOTS organic cotton certification scheme. That's not a problem isolated to India or to a certain certification, but massive. I mean, 40% of India's organic cotton in that year was fraudulently claimed.
And is that because you can command a higher price for it?
There's an economic incentive, exactly right. There's an incentive for a supplier because they can sell organic cotton or certified fiber at a higher price point than conventional fiber. There is an economic incentive to basically buy conventional fiber and sell it as sustainable. You see it in food as well. More Manuka honey is sold than is produced each year. Olive oil is the same. And it's getting easier with AI tools to make fake PDF documents. It's only getting easier. So the challenge is to create a more robust system and to make it more difficult for bad actors in the supply chain to create that fake material.
Okay, I am a Luddite,
Yes.
so you're going to have to explain phygital twin to me.
Yes. Okay, it's very simple. Previously, the way that product has been certified is through just a document, a PDF, much like what we receive in school, a certificate to say that we've done well. Very easy to make a fake document, right? To change the volume that you're claiming. And we've been reliant on that very weak form of verification. With Textile Genesis, it's taking that physical technology and making it digital. So it's a bit like moving from a checkbook-based of accounting to a digital banking app. And effectively, all of the suppliers on the supply chain have an account on the platform, but they can only claim the amount that they're sent from their upstream supplier. And that makes it a much more robust form of traceability and helps brands to identify the origin and have confidence that where they're sourcing from is actually where they want to be sourcing from.
And you basically store this data and information and hold this information?
On a digital platform, where every supplier has an account. Suppliers use the platform for free, and then the brand sees all of the value chain actors back to origin. Yes, yeah.
Great. So, Louise, I'm going to go to you. So you're representative of the other end of the supply chain. So you're representing brands. How important is this to you? And actually, how important is it to the consumer? Do they actually care?
Well, the thing is that some consumers care, some don't. But actually, it's not the point if the consumers cares or not. It's because it's really into our heart and to do the right thing. So that's not why we are doing it. We're doing it because it really reflects our values in our company, and of course because legislation is also coming at us. So, but it's really because it's the right thing to do. So
tell us a little bit about your brands then.
Well, I come from Selected, and we are part of Bestseller Group in Denmark, and we make men's and women's wear, and done so since 1997. We have this, you can say, Nordic heritage, where we combine the timeless design with a relevance in time. And that's pretty much it. I have a bit of a shorter introduction than a bit more complicated explanations.
Well, I mean, obviously, we all wish that we could be like all the Scandinavians and very big-hearted and good, but most of us come from big audiences and companies and where people don't really care about these things. So I'm just going to be really cynical here, and I'm going to ask you, are you just doing this because of compliance?
No, because we have been working with, sustainability itself for many, many years back. So we have been on this journey for a long time before we were talking legislation at all. So it's simply not the reason why. Of course, now there are things that we just need to keep up to space with in time to have the data and facts in order. But the whole journey to here, has always been because it's something that is really important for us. In Selected, it's one of our core values. It's what our customers also know that we really value and work really hard on, both innovation side and partnering up with Södra and of course Textile Genesis. So
Is it expensive
To what?
To create this certainty.
If it's expensive, of course, we have to get more data. We have to have the right systems. And of course, that takes investments, right? But it's needed, you know, if you want a business. So, and it's the same for everybody. So it's not only us. So it's the same game rule for the whole industry.
Yeah. Okay, Patrick, I'm coming to you. So HAELIXA is a hugely exciting, innovative and interesting piece of technology. So explain a little bit about what it is that you do. And then please, can you also explain how you have worked with TextileGenesis and with Bestseller?
Yeah, thanks, Tiff. Thanks for inviting me. Pleasure to be here. It's a bit strange not hearing anything, but I hear your question. So HAELIXA is a Swiss-based company. We are producing a DNA-based traceability solution, a physical solution. So we are working very closely with digital partners like TextileGenesis. And what we do is we add natural DNA to fibers at the earliest stage. And once that DNA is added to the fiber, we are able to verify throughout the whole supply chain. So is that origin? Is that really coming from there? And second, is that still the same fiber that has been marked, let's say, 1 year ago? And we do test that by doing a PCR test. We know that from COVID, you have this little swab thing. We take a swab and we do a PCR, and then we are able to say, yes, we find that DNA, and we also find the blend grade. So in terms of organic cotton, Jack has just mentioned that there's 40% of organic cotton is not organic cotton. We would be able to say, okay, this is the organic cotton we have marked. We find it in the yarn, we find it in the fabric, and we find it in the final garment. And that is for brands like Bestseller or all brands actually a very valuable information.
You just said that really quickly, and I know that what you're doing is like hugely complicated. So can you just explain, like adding natural DNA to a textile? What's the process there? Like, what does that look like?
So the DNA, you have to imagine everybody has his own DNA. If I touch, a lemon, if I touch a rose, I have DNA on my hand. So what we are using is, since we are a Swiss company, we're using Swiss mountain herbs. We use the DNA of these herbs, and you don't find that where cotton is grown, for example. And then this DNA, we put it in a liquid form, and then we spray it in a cotton gin. We spray it on the fiber. And once it is sprayed on the fiber, the DNA is, let's say, the certificate is then traveling with the product. So you don't have this issue what Jack just mentioned. You can falsify the PDF certificates, but you can't falsify the fiber. And then once that DNA is in there, we are able to read that out. And a fun fact, the DNA is not only natural, it's also non-toxic, which is important, and it's also very durable. And that's how we do it, because usually during bleaching and dyeing and washing, you would destroy the DNA, but our technology or our patent is that we make it durable.
I mean, briefly, how on earth are you doing that?
I think that's too technical, but it's a chemical process.
It's a closed secret, right?
It's a secret, but you imagine like a donut. You put the DNA in an open donut, and you put a cover on it, and that is silica, and that silica prevents the DNA to get or makes it robust and harsh for all the textile process.
And does it stay on forever?
This stays on up to 60 washes, but for sure for the whole production process. And then we look for a concentration. So we look, do we find the DNA, and do we find the same concentration that we have applied?
And then how is that certification being used? So for instance, when you're at the other end of the supply chain, is it something that a buyer, for instance, could ask for? Would they have to retest it? Like, how does this work commercially?
Mm-hmm. So what we are selling is the DNA liquid form. We sell this to brands, but it has to be applied at the early stage. So the brands then say, we want that. We want to trace the extra traceability on top of digital traceability. And then we work with the supply chain, with the ginning facilities, or in terms of cashmere, with the farms even. On a farm level, we apply it. And once it is applied, we create a certificate, and that is then uploaded into digital traceability company or tools like TextileGenesis.
So do you two need to work together? Do you need to coexist?
For me, it's a clear yes. I think first, brands need digital traceability. They need to understand their supply chain, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, 4. And once they know that, they know where they have a risk. And this risk depends a bit on the company. We have one big customer, is C&A. They use huge amounts of organic cotton, And for them, it would be a big risk if they wouldn't be able to verify that it's organic cotton. So that's why they decided to put DNA on organic cotton. On other brands, maybe it's more cashmere. Like if you're a cashmere brand and you have little cotton, you would probably select the cashmere. But we need digital traceability partners because we put our certificates into their systems, but we verify the data. So the data is correct because we physically verify it.
So Louise, you've worked with both TextileGenesis and HAELIXA. Can you just explain a little bit about the work that you've done with both of them and how it worked for you?
Well, I'm not the expert in this area because I'm working more with Södra, but in our company, of course, it's a part of it. And also because if I just look at it, I look more to the product perspective. And here it's essential because it's crucial for us. Actually, we have, we remember that, or we have seen that traceability has been, sometimes a bit of, for some, a burden. But for us, we have really embraced it more now because we also see the opportunities within it. It gives us an opportunity to get knowledge, to know the whole supply chain, and to work, for example, with partners, both, of course, with TextileGenesis and here, so that we can get to know the whole supply chain, but also know the more of the fiber. So in this place, of course, with Södra, get to know the impact of it, how it's made, the origin of it. And with all this knowledge, connecting that traceability, we are also able to at the end, simply produce better product because we have that knowledge. So it's like, normally we used to work a lot from our end to the manufacturer, the tier one and so on. But right now, starting more, from here, going around and going, for example, to Södra, we of course need that support to get traceability, but working this way around and then meet and go throughout the supply chain together. That journey together also gives us huge learnings. We have seen where we know where to improve also.
Maybe if I can add up on that, for me is also the commercial value. I mean, sustainability, I know there's a lot of sustainability people here, but there's a commercial value behind that. And I think that is for brands is important. So get what you pay for. And I mean, you're doing something, you're investing in that, and then you want to make sure that you can verify that. I think that is natural. And if you speak to financial people, they always ask for that. And at the end, in the brands as well, financial people have a say and you need to come to their budget. And if they are convinced that there is a commercial value, then I think we can also move forward.
Yes. I always go back to that phrase that Gabriella Hurst uses for her brand, which she says, people buy from us because they know that we've done the homework for them. And I think that's really, part of a luxury proposition, wherever you are in the marketplace, is that we need to be able to trust our brands and trust that you're doing the work, especially when there's such innovation.
And I would like to add on that the same goes for us as the raw material. We want to have the trust that we see that we can get, but giving that trust, if it means that we also need to talk, which we do with TextileGenesis, that is an important part for us as well. So we can give that trust to our brand partner, to our other manufacturer partners within the value chain, because we need to trust as well.
So Tina, you're using TextileGenesis.
We are having a pilot with them and we are talking to them. And I see that there can be a lot of good things happening with them in the future, yeah.
So I want to ask you a little bit about compliance, actually, because as I'm sure everybody here knows, the EU has just recently done a little bit of a U-turn on their greenwashing regulation, something that I'm sure everybody in this room was relying on. What do you understand about what we need now in terms of EU regulation, what's coming, what compliance we need to do, and how we need to be kind of future fit?
For now, the good thing about being part of a big company that is Södra is that we have people within the organization that are experts within this, and also working very closely with the politicians in EU and in Sweden. So we're quite up to date, and we are working very closely to understand what is needed from us when it comes to the EUDR, but also when it comes to the textile industry. And for us, it's all about getting the demand for our pulp and getting the demand for the fiber that our pulp turns into. And the upcoming EU regulation is hopefully that push that we really, really need. Hopefully we'll get that push before, but we hope we are really leading towards them. Of course, I think all of us are doing it. That will give us that extra push, and hopefully help us innovators to continue and do better and go better. And I was quite shocked when the Green Deal was discarded, because we have been working quite long with it, because I see our that gives us that extra is that we have the data. We have the data that we always can use and help our partners with. And for be able to show that we actually have that data with everything that we said and the partner said, I think that is a really strength for us and for our partners. So I think it's a bit sad that it's not happening. Yeah.
Bit of a shock.
Yeah.
Jack, I mean, what do you understand, in terms of eco-design and product identity? What's required now? Do you know what the new regulations are?
So it's a good question. I think it's easy to be negative around the regulatory space, and it's a winding road. But there's still a lot of regulations that are still live outside of the Green Claims Directive. So here in the UK, the Competition and Markets Authority have the Green Claims Code, which means that you have to be very clear about your evidence when you're making a sustainability claim on garments. There's consumer protection regulations globally, which are around being honest and clear with consumers. We've got the AJET regulation in France, which requires you to have the percentage of recycled content on clothing, and the Eco Design for Sustainable Product Regulation, or ESPR. It's a big mouthful.
Is that an EU or a UK thing?
ESPR is the EU form of regulation.
Yeah.
What's interesting is a lot of the brands and retailers are probably just going to roll out compliance globally, because it doesn't make sense to have some product claims going into the EU and others outside of the EU. So it'll have an impact not just within the EU, but also in UK and American markets as well. And I think, that feels like it's full steam ahead at this stage, touch wood, around requiring brands to be very clear about durability, recycled content. The data requirements are set to be announced next year, 2026. But it was only a few months ago that apparel was placed as one of the first products that would be prioritized for ESPR. So the expectation is that will go live in 2026, 2027. So.
And sorry to put you on the spot, but do you know anything about what's going on in the US?
So the US is an interesting time at the moment, generally. Obviously, we've got the Uyghur Forced Labor Prevention Act, or UFLPA, which is focused on ensuring that different materials that are imported into the US market aren't grown in forced labor conditions, including cotton as an example. And some interesting kind of forms of regulation, both in New York, but also in California, which are starting to be debated. So that's also interesting because, if you have a certain regulation in one state, again, the expectation is that brands would then roll that out across the whole of the US market. So, yeah, I think it's important not just to focus on a specific form of regulation and think that's fine, anyone can say anything they want. That the weight of movement is still going in a positive direction, I would say. Yeah.
Patrick, what do you know about the US demand and requirements?
Actually, US demand, we had a bit of a backdraw. We had good customers who said, okay, we are waiting now because we don't know how the situation evolves. But actually, we made let's say we tried to find a positive aspect on that, verifying US cotton that is then spun in Asia and is going back to the US as yarn. How do you know that this is still American cotton? This is something where we can help with our solution, because we would market, we would test it. So I think in all of this crisis, there's also
American made.
Yes, you need to find the deal, Mr. Trump would say. That's the one thing. But the second part for us, recycling, as Jack just mentioned, that is becoming more and more important. So verifying circular activities. So we would be verifying or marking recycled waste. Then it is shredded. You produce new yarn. You produce new garments, and we will be able to say, okay, this is produced of post-consumer waste, and this is 20% in that final garment. So we always see new opportunities. Yeah, I think we have to be like that, because otherwise, if we only wait for the regulations to push on one thing, I think that's not enough. And as a startup, we need to look, we need to be very flexible.
Yeah, I admire your bravery, because trying to build a business in such a sort of shifting landscape is hard, right? How are you keeping confidence with your investors? How are you kind of keeping the commercial plus sides up in this landscape?
Yeah. It's hard to keep them happy, but I mean, the market is tough, but if you come with new ideas, I think they appreciate that. And as I said, for us, we started with actually not textiles. We started in marking gold and gemstones coming from responsible mines. So that was our initial business.
That was how you started?
That's how we started 7 years ago. And then 4 years ago, we went into textiles because we felt that the demand for traceability is much higher and the material as well. That market is more difficult, but also we like the challenge, let's say. And within that market now we see many new opportunities opening up. So cashmere was the first, then organic cotton was the second. We do silk tracing, we do down tracing, and now the recycling. I think that's the biggest part for us for the future, I believe, because all these innovators here actually, they come up with great ideas, but they need a verification of their fiber. Otherwise, it is not as strong as they would like to be, because we know once that fiber is going to Asia for production, it comes back in a product, and then they buy 30% of your fiber and 70% they replace it with something else. So we would be able to verify that, and that's the discussion we are having at the moment, which gives me a confidence.
So can I just ask where your clients are coming from? Like I mean, obviously Scandinavia is always coming at these things kind of with the most amount of integrity. Where commercially are you building your business most successfully right now? And where do you see the opportunity, and what do you need to overcome to get into new territories?
I think, like Louise said, I think the Scandinavian brands were ahead of this, and it's really intrinsically. So the project we did with Bestseller was only already on recycled garments. That was 2 years ago already, so when it was not that strong. But we focus on European market still. We are a Swiss brand. We thought it's easier for us to grow in Europe. CNA is a big customer, Hugo Boss. Spanish fast fashion company. We are working with them. But US market, we have some contacts, but at the moment it's very slow, I have to say that.
When you talk about kind of big fast fashion companies, I mean, I'm curious, like how receptive are those big players, Jack and Patrick, to the technologies that you are proposing?
I think they're very, very receptive. I mean, if you think about the largest brands in the industry, some of the largest brands, in a sense, they're often the focus of investigations, of journalistic investigations. So that's a large part of our client base. We work with large players, including H&M, Inditex, luxury brand groups as well, including Kering. And I think if you're a smaller brand, sometimes, in a sense, you benefit because there's less of a focus, there's less of a light on you.
Yeah.
But it cuts across. The need for traceability isn't just to focus on kind of lower price point products. It's also, luxury brands, need to prove the origin. That's a really important part of their brand value to the end consumer. And sportswear as well. I mean, if you think about activewear brands, a huge usage of synthetics and, strong targets to get to fully circular materials. And as Patrick was saying, there's a huge increase in demands for textile to textile recycling, not PET plastic bottles, but textile to textile. And with that demand will come more fraud or more attempted fraud in the value chain. So trying to protect those, activewear brands from that fraud, ensuring that the circular value chains are indeed, circular and not virgin materials being disguised as circular materials is key. It's very important that the larger brands work with us, but equally smaller brands as well. Yeah.
Tina, I mean, are you dealing with the big brands?
We want to. We are.
Are they taking your calls?
They are taking our calls, but of course it's sometimes hard to get them to start, doing the first couple of products. But for us, it's so simple, because if you are using viscose today, you can just replace it with our viscose. It has the same quality, it has the same high quality, which is very important for us to keep the really good high quality that we are known for and that we want to keep. So it's not a big thing, but of course it's always finding new value chains, and we always want to be a part of that so we can help with the value chains, of course. But it's of course a little bit struggling. They're taking our calls, but we want them to call us more.
And what's the barrier here? Is it price?
Price is one thing, yes, I would say, but also I would say the value chain. They are quite set with the value chain they have. Can we add on to that value chain, or do they need to add a new value chain into it? But of course, the pricing is one part of it. Yes, yeah.
Sorry, can you just explain the value chain bit again?
If a brand often have their value chain, they have the partners that they want to work with. If these partners haven't worked with ONCEMORE based material before, maybe they need to find a new partner that have. But for us, we can add on to the value chain that they have, trying to connect with the partners and see if they can start producing in our viscose or in our raw material based material.
So essentially, it's trust again.
Yeah, it's trust. It's all about trust, and it's all about showing the trust. Yeah, I would say, yeah.
Louise, you're nodding.
Yeah, because it's crucial.
Yeah.
Because we also know when we have worked with, when we started with ONCEMORE, that it's just not easy and smooth from the beginning on. We needed to do a bit of work, but then it really works because we, as Tina says, we need to connect the people together throughout the supply chain. And here, of course, we have some existing partners, and we need to connect them with the ones that Södra is also used to working with. So we ensure that quality level again. And that's really crucial. And that way, when we connect together and ensure that we work with the right partners throughout, we also know that everything will be okay, and the quality and so on. So that is really, really crucial to have that trust. And yeah.
You've got the trust committee here, everyone.
Yeah.
Right now, I've just looked, there's loads of questions, so I'm just going to rack through them from the top. So, Patrick, what happens with this DNA when the garment is being recycled? Very good question.
So that's one of the advantages. So the DNA is not getting destroyed, so we will be able to read it out if it's not chemically recycled. So on mechanically recycling, we will be able to keep seeing that DNA, which is a very strong value, but on the chemical
that's
recycling,
after
working.
60 washes?
After 60 washes, it degrades, but we would still be able to see it, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. Right. Question for bestseller. How do you balance sustainability and affordability in the face of rising consumerism? That is the big question of the day.
Well, I can talk for, selected our brands. We have working a lot with upgrading our qualities as well. So we have simply been upgrading the quality level and at the same time also raising the bar for sustainability. That journey started years back. So it's not new for us. And I think everybody in our organization, it's not asking questions anymore when we have to make investments. It's
that's the thing, isn't it? You need your whole organization to be utterly committed to your purpose.
You need everybody to be committed and to be on board.
Yeah.
Because if you have to discuss it,
yeah,
whether we are doing this or not, that's not the way. We just need to set a clear strategy, and all the way from the top and down to the whole organization. So it's quite common. We don't have these price discussions, and now with Södra, it has not been an issue in that sense because it's just like we're just doing it.
I think you need to drop in on the NATO summit, actually. I think there's some advice you could possibly give them. Okay, so Jack, this one's for you.
Yes.
What level of the supply chain do you see fake certification being done the most? Interesting. Is it always the initial fiber supplier, or do you see it further up?
Yeah, great question. I mean, we see it throughout the total value chain. There's examples throughout. I think often it takes place in what we call the black box of the supply chain. So the bit that is less visible to the brand at the end. Tier one suppliers, have that direct relationship with the brands, and there's that trust there. There's an incentive to have that honesty. It doesn't mean it doesn't happen, but often it's the kind of the hidden part of the value chain that initially isn't known to the brand, up at kind of tier 3, perhaps spinning or trading stage, where there may be more risk. But that's not to say that all spinners are dishonest. There's a lot of good spinners out there, and also there's some dishonest fabric mills and garment makers. I guess for brands and retailers, it comes down to building that trust and the relationships with your suppliers, having those long-term relationships, and investing in a traceability tool that at least allows you to discover who are those upstream actors that you're connected to, and ensuring that you're not one of those brands that is sourcing 20% of their materials and making claims on the finished garments that actually are not true. There's potential risk throughout, but it's often in that black box of the value chain.
Yeah.
If I can add up to that, I think we have the same experience, But once people know actually that we are tracing with DNA, also if it's traceable with, digitally, already the fraud rate goes down. So we started informing, in the beginning we didn't inform the supply chain that we are tracing it, and then we detected a lot. But now with every new customer, we tell them, okay, this is what we are doing, this is how it works, and you can see drastically it's going down. And on spinning level, especially, I have to say, not every spinner is a sinner, but on spinning level, we have seen a lot. Okay. But that is really going down once we inform the supply chain.
Yeah. That's interesting insight. Now, what I love most about this room is the level of geekery that's in here. And this next question, I'm not even going to pretend that I know what it means. So I'm hoping that you guys will. Okay. It's from Charles Ross, and it is ESPR. Will we have as many problems with the product environmental footprints as we have had with the HIG MSI, as they are both based off the Cascale database?
That's a good question. It's a good question, Charles.
You're getting
Thank
your
you.
end.
Yeah, it's a challenge, right? If we're getting to a place where we're expecting all apparel products to be sold into Europe with an environmental impact calculation, how on earth do you kind of compare apples with oranges and polyester with cotton and cashmere with wool? And whichever direction you go in, someone's not going to be happy. And we've particularly seen that with a lot of the natural fiber players coming together, so the animal fibers, the cottons, the linens, saying, what happens to the polyester? Every single polyester garment that you've ever worn is going to be around for the next few hundred years. Very different for natural fiber products. So it's difficult. I don't think there's no totally correct answer. I think it's about hearing from different voices in the industry. And let's see what happens, what the EU say around ESPR. But at the moment, I think the natural fiber standards and organizations are feeling a little bit let down. Yeah.
I often feel that what's missing in these rooms is government and legislators. And so if you are in the audience and you're from the government and legislation, please can you get on with your job? Now the next question is actually about inclusivity. I'm going to ask Tina and Louise this one. How can circularity and transparency scale if sustainable fashion and traceability tools exclude early stage and minority-led brands due to high costs? I guess they're asking you to drop your prices.
I think that was a long question.
Do you do pilot projects with small brands?
Yes, we do. And we try to connect with smaller brands further down the value chain to help them. And we have partners within textile manufacturer that doesn't have added the price, because, of course, we add the price when we sell it to the fiber producer, because our pulp contains recycled cotton and the technology behind it. But in the value chain, each player can add on price, but they don't need to. And the same goes for us. Of course, we don't need to, but if no one adds along the way, the price is not that much higher in the end. It's like, nothing in the end when it comes to the final product. But for the smaller brands, yes, we are doing pilots with smaller brands, and we are trying to connect the smaller brands as well. And we try to do that by collaborate with textile manufacturers that want to be out there when it comes to new types of innovation, but also can have a lower cost, but still want to reach out and grab these smaller brands. So I will say yes, and I think it's doable, and I think let's connect and see what we can do together, because we want to meet you.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's lots of examples of kind of small independent designers doing pilot projects with fabric manufacturers, so why couldn't it be the same for traceability tools as well? Jack, this one's for you. Data can be faked as well, so how are you making sure this doesn't happen?
Yeah, great question. We often say, you can have a really great system, but if you've got rubbish data coming in, then you're just going to have rubbish coming out. So the quality of the data and the fact that it needs to be robust is very important. So we work with standards bodies. We work with roughly 90% of ESG standards in the industry today, including Textile Exchange, SUPEMA, US Cotton Trust Protocol, the Alliance for European Flax, Linen and Hemp, to name a few. And those organizations they're the experts, right? They effectively specify what suppliers need to do to meet those standards. And we only allow for certified suppliers at the start of the value chain to create inventory. So we have integration with some of those leading standards, including, as an example, US Cotton Trust Protocol and SUPEMA, where we integrate with their systems to have every single permanent bale ID or serial number, a bit like a serial number on an iPhone, Every bale of cotton in the US has a unique serial number, and that can only be claimed once. You can't double claim the same bale of cotton. So having very strong integrity on the data at the start of the value chain is really important. And then ensuring that suppliers downstream can't duplicate their claims. So, if a spinner receives 100 kilograms or 100 fiber coins, that's all they can claim and send to their downstream fabric mill. Much more robust than PDF transaction certificates. It's not bulletproof. There's no system in the world that's bulletproof. And a lot of this depends on strong relationships with suppliers and trust. I think Patrick made a really good point, which is when suppliers know that they're inputting data into a system, more likely to be telling the truth. These are suppliers that previously haven't really had to directly engage with brands. So they're having to enter, input into shipment data, volume, composition. The kind of challenge for them to create fraud is much more difficult. So yeah, that's a bit about how we do it. I think standards are so important, often forgotten about, but ESG standards are the experts in the industry, and working with them is key to ensure that there's trust at the start of the value chain. Yeah.
And I guess the two of you working together is also an insurance for each of you as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So especially, for us, the testing which we do is a lab test, a forensic test. And the DNA, you either find it and you can verify it or not. So that is very strong. This is not done by us. It can be done by SGS, Testex, Hauenstein. So we share the DNA strings, what they need to look for. And this string is almost impossible to crack, in my view.
Swiss vault.
Everything. It's Swiss vault. I would not call it that strong, but it is actually very difficult. And on textiles, the incentive is maybe high, but I think it's much higher in gemstones and gold. And on gold, we are tracing 18,000 kilograms of gold. I think like 200,000 carats of gemstones. There, I would suspect someone trying to crack the DNA code, but that didn't happen yet.
I think this is a really good next question, actually, which is certainly when it comes to kind of standards and certifications, it's a very confusing landscape for the consumer particularly. Is that also an issue in the trust and traceability space? Like as more and more of these different certifications and methodologies come to light, is it just going to become confusing for brands?
From
Louise,
a brand perspective, of course, compliance is more and more important, and also taking up more resources. But I think it's, and we see also our customers, they need to have more compliance. They need to see more proof to gain that trust in us. So it's definitely crucial, and it goes also all the way to the end consumer, where we get questions about the same topic. So it is around building that trust, because otherwise they need to really rely on what we are saying is also true.
Have you ever found issues of fraud in your supply chain, and what have you done about it?
Well, we need to take action immediately when we send something. Well, it is simply going back, and again, all the way back in the supply chain to secure where it's coming from, the origin, make up those partnerships. We make a lot partnerships also direct to farm projects with cotton, for example. And here that's one of the ways where we can source directly all the way back to the farm to secure, and also on payment and a lot of other things, but especially to get that full traceability. And also if what we can't see, we can't improve. Also, so to be able to improve as we go, we need to be able to get the knowledge.
Yeah. When you find this fraud, is there a way of popularizing that information within the wider industry?
If there's a way to, sorry?
So to tell other people, other buyers that this is a problematic supplier?
Well,
or do you just keep that information to yourself?
Well, I think we have discovered something, but then we solved it on the way. So it was not, ending out. Okay. But of course, it's something everybody, I think, all fashion brands are solely aware of. Yeah. To get the compliance, to get the right documentation. There's a lot to handle on documentation part.
I'm really sorry, guys. We are out of time, and there's a ton more questions. So just mug everybody after this panel. Before we go, I'm just going to ask everybody here to tell me very quickly why they think trust is important in 2025. I'm going to start with you, Jack.
Why is trust important in 2025? It's going to be so much easier for suppliers to, if they want to, commit fraud with AI tools, to create fake documents or to make a claim that's not true. And so I think it's important more now than ever to invest in, strong, robust systems to ensure that you can trust the good suppliers.
Because fraud's getting easier.
Yeah.
Patrick?
Yeah, for me, it's if brand trust is lost, the brand is done. So I think that's the most important thing you have. And if you lose this, then it's hard to go on.
Louise?
And it costs a lot.
It costs a lot. Yeah, that good commercial imperative there.
Well, it's because we're working behind the scenes, of course, but we need for the customers to see the impact, but they also need to trust the impact that we make. So, yeah.
Okay, great. Tina?
And I would say that trust is always a must, not only 2025, but always. And I would say that trust is all we have. And I love working in a company that we have all that data that we actually have to prove that we are a trustworthy company and partner. And I love that we can lead on that. And that is like our biggest competitive product to have. We need the data to show the trust, and we need to have the trust to go. Yeah.
Thank you. Tina, Louise, Patrick and Jack. I've really enjoyed this panel. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you all for listening.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
listening.